Yo, what is up guys? Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So this video is a quick little, preview for an upcoming heavyweight fight which goes down on July 1st in the US on ESPN. And the fight is between Jared Anderson, arguably the most highly touted heavyweight prospect right now, 14-0 with 14 knockouts, 23 years old, looks to be a guy with a lot of talent, a lot of potential. And he is fighting a man by the name of Zhan Kossobutskiy, who is 19-0 with 18 knockouts. Zhan Kossobutskiy is a bit older, 34 years old, hails from Kazakhstan, quite an extensive amateur pedigree. He's a southpaw and he's of similar dimensions to Jared Anderson. Jared Anderson is 6'4", whereas Zhan Kossobutskiy is 6'3". And for me, when this fight was made, I was somewhat surprised. I certainly see this as Jared Anderson's best opponent to date. When it comes to Jared Anderson, I see why people are excited. Anderson is an athletically gifted heavyweight, has pretty good hand speed, puts his shots together well for a heavyweight, also has good punch variety for a heavyweight. He's quite creative in there with his offense, and so far in his career, for my money, he's not really put a foot wrong. He's never looked in danger or anything of the sorts. There's been a few fights where he switches off, he does get caught. Most notably in his fight with Milan Rovkanin. That was a couple of fights ago. He got tagged up in that fight a little bit, but he walked through those shots and stopped Rovkanin. But yeah, this is certainly the biggest step up so far in Anderson's career. Like I say, Zhan Kossobutskiy is more of an unknown guy, but again, coming from that Kazakhstan amateur pedigree, he's well schooled, he's seasoned. Like I say, he's a southpaw, carries power. And, you know, Zhan Kossobutskiy himself has some interesting and I would say unique skills for a heavyweight, which is why I'm kind of surprised they made this fight. You know, Anderson is a very highly hyped guy, and Kossobutskiy is a guy who is completely unknown, but he is potentially dangerous. When you look at both guys, I would say they fought a similar level of competition. Jared Anderson has fought guys like Jerry Forrest, a tough journeyman, Jeremiah Carpence, you know, George Arias, Rodney Hernandez, you know, middle of the road sort of guys. Same goes for Zhan Kossobutskiy. He fought Johan Duhaupas, a way past his best Duhaupas, stopped him in 5 rounds. He stopped Joey DeWayco in a couple of rounds, beat Kamil Sakalowski, knocked him out late in 10 rounds. So both guys have fought a similar level of competition. Both guys have fought notable journeymen. And, you know, both guys have been pretty dominant in their careers so far. What interests me about this fight is, I would say this is the first time Jared Anderson has fought anyone with an semblance of power. Not that Kossobutskiy is like a monster puncher, but he hits hard enough, and he hits from body to head. You know, much like Jared Anderson, Zhan Kossobutskiy can mount a body attack, and he can switch his combinations up as he's throwing his punches. Got a very dangerous right hook out of that southpaw stance to both body and head. Good lead uppercut, southpaw straight left hand. And Kossobutskiy, one thing I've noticed about him in some of his fights, he seems to be willing to counter in exchanges. He maintains his composure quite well. And against a young guy like Anderson, who can get a little overexcited at times when he lands a couple of good shots, that could be something to look out for Anderson, because Kossobutskiy is crafty, he is astute at countering. So Jared Anderson may need to show a bit more patience in this fight. Box behind the jab, use that superior speed, use those legs, maybe make Kossobutskiy chase the fight, and don't get drawn in early on because, as I say, Kossobutskiy has pretty good timing, both with his right hook and his southpaw straight left hand. And as I said, we have seen Anderson get caught in a few of his fights. Again, I go back to that Rovkanin fight. He got caught a few times in that fight with some flush shots, but Rovkanin just couldn't really hurt Anderson. Zhan Kossobutskiy is certainly a bigger puncher than Rovkanin, so it will be interesting to see what happens if Kossobutskiy lands on the target against Anderson, and especially if he lands with consistency. How will Anderson take that power? But, you know, the same can be said the other way round. Kossobutskiy's not exactly for big punchers in the pros. I know Johan Duhaupas can punch a bit, but Duhaupas was shot to bits by the time he fought him. So, you know, this fight is a significant test for both men, and it makes sense for both men. I think after that George Arias fight, it was obvious to me that Jared Anderson needed some sort of step up, because, yeah, George Arias had an unbeaten record, but if you actually go back and watch Arias' fights, he's never been impressive. He's short, he's plodding, not really a puncher, bit of a static target, and for an athletic guy like Anderson, Arias was there to make him look good, and the unbeaten record was very deceptive. Whereas Kossobutskiy, I think there's a lot more substance to him in comparison to George Arias. So this is the sort of step up Anderson needed. Likewise for Zhan Kossobutskiy. Kossobutskiy is 34 years old. He needs to make some noise now or never. And fighting one of the top prospects arguably the top prospect, certainly the most hyped prospect in heavyweight boxing, is a good way to go about it. If Kossobutskiy were to beat Jared Anderson, then all of a sudden we are introducing Kossobutskiy as a contender, I guess you would say, at 34 years old. So this is a big opportunity for him to kind of really get on that big stage and push for some big fights. There's a lot on the line for both guys. There really is. A loss for a young prospect like Jared Anderson, particularly a bad loss like a knockout loss, especially at heavyweight, they can always be hard to come back from. Matchmaking in the heavyweight division is so hard because a guy can look so good for so long, one bad moment and, you know, he doesn't quite look the same again. We can go back to David Price. David Price was destroying guys coming up, then came along Tony Thompson, a step too early, and David Price was never the same again. So, and bear in mind, David Price actually got named 2012 ESPN Prospect of the Year, believe it or not. But after that Tony Thompson loss, he was never the same. So, yeah, Anderson is young, but there's something about getting knocked out in the heavyweight division as a prospect that really seems to kill a lot of careers. Kills more than it doesn't, put it that way. So, you know, there's some risk here for Jared Anderson. And, you know, the same goes for Zhan Kossobutskiy. At 34 years old, hailing from Kazakhstan, if he loses to a 23-year-old upstart like Anderson, let's be honest, his career is basically done, isn't it? So there's a lot on the line here for both guys. Both guys can crack a bit. Both guys have some unique traits for heavyweights, in particular the body punching. Anderson's a good combination puncher, good hand speed. Good fight this is. Good fight. This is the sort of fight that I wanted for Jared Anderson, and I'm quite surprised they've gone down this route. I was kind of looking at guys along the level of, you know, F.A. Ajagba, those sort of guys. But Zhan Kossobutskiy is good for me. Yes, he's slightly more unknown, but, you know, he's got some unique skills in my opinion, and who knows, he could give Anderson some trouble. But good fight, good step up. I'm looking forward to this one, I really am. Anyway, share your thoughts below. It's been your guy Del Boy. Peace.